Welcome to Midnight Mule FPL. I'm Midnight Mule and this is the video for Game Week 22 for the 5% series. In this series we look at the players that are the most popular at the moment, but we also look at players that used to be popular because they may still be in your team. And I'll tell you whether I think it's worth playing them, keeping them, should we be getting other players in. I don't look at players that have never been popular and aren't super popular now because they're not the ones that are going to hurt you. As far as your rank is concerned, the players that hurt you are going to be the ones that are highly owned that you do not own. Now I think since the last 5% series video we've had a double game week announced, and that does affect things. And rather than throw up some graphics to explain it, I think the Fantasy Football Hub does a good job, so I'm going to show you on there. This is the Fantasy Football Hub website and I think it illustrates nicely the effect of a double game week. So I've chosen defenders here. I'm looking at game weeks 22 to 25, so that's a 4 game week view. And this is the predicted score for those 4 game weeks. And you'll see the top few are Liverpool. And that's because game week 24, you'll see they're expected to get a very good score. And the other team that's got a double, of course, is Everton. So although Everton, you have to scroll down a fair way to get to the first Everton defender over a 4-week view. There we are. If we just look at game week 24... I should think it's going to be Liverpool and Everton. Liverpool defenders, Everton defenders, and then Gabriel's the first one. So Mikalenko and Tarkowski, for example, for Everton are predicted to score more points than the mighty Gabriel of Arsenal for game week 24. But there's a bit of a gotcha here because in game week 29, there's going to be 4 teams, that's 2 matches, not playing. At the moment, it's predicted it's probably going to be Liverpool and Aston Villa, and then possibly Newcastle Palace, but we'll know in a few game weeks' time for sure. And this is to do with the EFL Cup and who's going to get through. So as things stand, if you bring in Liverpool players, that's fine. Most teams are going to try and have 3 Liverpool players come game week 24, but just be aware they're probably not going to be playing in game week 29. We don't know for sure, but probably not. Everton don't have that problem. They are going to be playing in game week 29. But of course, they're not as good as Liverpool players. Now, I will need to add a few more Liverpool and Everton players probably to the system, but I've not added any new players this game week because there's no one pressing that I need to add. And we're only on game week 22, so I've got time to carefully consider who are the best ones. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing and made some sense. And now back to our regular programming. As always, we start by looking at how the players in the system did in game week 21. And game week 21's unfinished. It's just gone 8 o'clock now, so there are 4 teams playing at the moment. So, of course, their scores aren't in here. And also, of course, if any of these players get injured or suspended tonight, take that into account when you're choosing your teams. But at the moment, I don't know about those. So, Henderson got 7. Sales got 3. Martinez 6. Nice to see him do something. Flecken 3. For the defenders, Robinson 7. Hall 6. Burn 6, Konza 9, and that's all. And I'm always quite rude about Konza. I'm like, it's not worth buying him. If you got him, that's fine, but he's not worth having. And look at that, he got 9 points. For the midfielders, Palmer 10, Gordon 9, Rogers 6. Got Salah blanked, only the 3rd blank this season. Semenyo 12, Son 8. For the forwards, we have Isak 16, Wood 9, Jackson 4. So well done if you captain Isak. Watkins 9, and that's all. Look, Solanke got 0. He did get a goal, but it was an own goal. So that was unfortunate. Now for the upcoming game week, what do we think of the various players? Sales is now the most important goalkeeper. So if you need a new keeper, he would be the one to get, except we've got game week 24 coming up. So in game week 24, most active managers are either going to have Alisson from Liverpool or Pickford from Everton just because they got a second game. But you don't need to worry about that at the moment. And Alisson's not in the system, but I will be adding him unless he gets injured, of course. And then it'd be Raya, who's 0.6 more expensive, but he's lower owned now than Sales. So Sales is the one that's going to do the damage, and Forest have been very good. Forest are at home to Southampton this game week. Then they've got Bournemouth, Brighton, Fulham. That could be 4 clean sheets there. So Sales at 5 million is a better choice at the moment than Raya. It's not worth swapping Raya for Sales though, because that then costs a transfer, unless you've got 5 transfers and nothing else to do. But if you've got a playing keeper, I'd say for now, That's okay. Hold your horses. Let's look at it in another couple of game weeks, what we're doing the keepers. And then Henderson's the next most important. These are ordered by importance, by the way. And then Pickford. So I've made him green because he's a good player. I do like Pickford. And the next 4 games, he could get a few clean sheets there, but he's got a double. And that makes a huge difference. And then we've got Sanchez. So even in the double, he might let in 3 goals against Liverpool, might end up with 2 points. But that's still 2 points plus whatever he gets against Leicester. That's why he's so good. Now you're seeing these players, there's a red number. That's how many points effective against you if they get 6 points and you don't own them. So if Sales gets 6 points and you don't own him, that's like you get minus 1.8 points. Whereas if Sanchez gets 6 points and you don't own him, that's only minus 0.5. So if you own Sales, he's not going to be hurting you. And that's the whole concept of this series. Try and get the players that are going to hurt you if you don't own them. So Fabianski's a funny one in as much as he is very highly owned, but most managers who own Fabianski also own another keeper who's their first choice. So Fabianski isn't going to hurt you too much any game that he does well. And then the rest of the keepers on here, they're not going to hurt you at all. That's Flecken, Martinez, who's really good, a lot of fun, but he's not worth 5 million. And then Ward represents any 4 million keeper that you're not going to play. Now for the defenders, I'd say Gabriel's a good player and he's the most important defender to own if you can. I'm aware some managers are selling him and he's less than 50% owned now among the active managers. But his upcoming fixtures are quite nice. Even the Man City one could be some fun. And he's always got the chance of getting an attacking return. Trent's ownership is falling a bit as well. Only about a third of the managers are going to own him. But he has some nice fixtures coming up and a double. But he is quite expensive. And then Hall, I think, is going to be the most highly owned defender. But I think he's not got the same chance of getting the high points as Trent and Gabriel. So that's why I've got Gabriel as the most important, then Trent and then Hall. And if these were your 3 defenders that you're playing every week and your 2 bench fodder, I'd say that would be all right. And then Aina's quite important. They've been doing well recently. They're at home to Southampton. And Robinson's the last highly owned defender. So these are the 5 defenders that are going to hurt you if you don't own them. Any of the other defenders really don't matter too much. So we've got Virgil van Dijk. I'm saying he's a good player. He's got a nice double coming up, but he's not going to hurt you and he's 6.4 million. So if you're tight for money, you'd be much better off getting Hall, for example, or even Aina. And then the less important defenders in the system, we have Saliba, Gvardiol, who's been a bit disappointing, but he's always very close to getting attacking returns in every game, it seems. But he's not done it. And I might be slightly biased because I own him. He's got Ipswich next, and after that, there's a reasonable chance I'm going to sell him. He's 6 million, and I could probably do with that position being free for somebody else. And then we have Burn, Pedro Porro, who was very popular. He's dropped a lot in popularity now. So if he does well, he's not really going to hurt you. Whereas 2-3 months ago, if he did well and you didn't own him, he is going to hurt you. Then Masrael's now lowly owned. Lewis is quite lowly owned, and he didn't play last game week. Man City haven't been good defensively. So if you want to free up a defensive slot and you've got Lewis, he's a fine one to sell. I'd say don't bother buying Lewis for sure. There are better people to buy. And then these defenders are really not going to hurt you if you don't own them. That's Konsa, he's bench fodder. Mikolenko, bench fodder. But his ownership is going to go up a lot in the next few game weeks. So if you want some bench fodder cover, you want to get him because you'll be playing him in game week 24. Then Aiton Nori's down here. He's not bench fodder. He's too expensive. He gets quite a lot of chances of attacking returns. I wouldn't be buying him 4.8 million. He's very lowly owned now. He's not going to hurt you. But if you've got him, you don't have to be in a mad rush to move him on. But if you've got the free transfers, you probably should do and get someone better. Howard Bellis is bench fodder. Well, Faz is bench fodder. Greaves is bench fodder. And although these are all very lowly owned over the previous months, at some point they've all been highly owned, which means they may still be in some of your teams. For the midfielders, Salah, now he's a banker. Everyone owns Salah. Basically everyone owns Salah. Even people not playing the game own Salah. He's going to hurt you so much on the odd chance you haven't got him. And he's got the double coming up, so you kind of have to have him. Palmer's very highly owned and he's a good player, so you need him. Gordon, half the managers around the million rank are going to have him. He's got some nice fixtures coming up. He's going to get some good points. The only slight thing against Gordon is there's a reasonable chance he's going to blank in game week 29. But we're coming into game week 22, and that's quite a few game weeks away. So you don't need to worry about it at the moment. And if you can get Gordon in, that's great. He's worth having. Mbeumo's got Liverpool this game week. Liverpool defensively are very good. But after that, Brentford have a very nice run. So his popularity's going to increase. And I wouldn't be surprised if it goes above Gordon's in the next few game weeks. They're both going to be very popular. If those four are your four main midfielders, then you're in a very strong position, I think. And then although Rodgers can hurt you, he's as highly owned as Mbeumo, but he just gets benched quite a lot by managers, and I think it's psychological because he's cheaper. He's 5.5 million, Mbeumo's 7.8 million. But actually Rodgers is scoring quite nicely at the moment. So if there were your 5 midfielders and you play them every week, that would be quite good. And you got yourself covered nicely for not getting hurt by midfielders. And then we've got Ahmad, but he's less popular, much less popular. And then Fernandez is a very good player, more expensive than Ahmad. And at the moment, he's not highly owned, so you're okay. And then next page of midfielders, Luis Diaz. A lot of managers are selling him, but I think by game week 24, lots of managers are going to be buying him. So he's going to go up, as will Gakpo, who's not in the system, Jota, who's not in the system, and various other players. So I think he's going to increase in popularity. But in any case, he is a good player. He seems to get 70 plus minutes most weeks. So game week 24, that's 140 minutes he may well get. Semenyo, away to Newcastle, who are defensively very good. But after that, he's got Forest, Liverpool at home, Southampton. He could be doing right there. So he's very close to being green. So I've made him a light green just because maybe next week he would be a full green. But he's a good player. If you've got him, you completely don't need to sell him unless you particularly want to get Gordon or Mbeumo next week, for example. And then Enzo, massively dropped in popularity. He's not going to hurt you. Son, he scored a goal. I think he got 9 points. He's not going to hurt you. Very nice run of fixtures for Spurs. But he's a lot of money, 9.8 million. So I would be tempted, if I wanted to back Spurs, I'd probably get different midfielders and then I'd be investing in like Pedro Porro or maybe even Solanke as a forward. And then Dibbling, brilliant player, but he's not going to hurt you, so he's bench fodder. And then Winks, 4.5 million. No one owns Winks, but they used to. Many managers are playing 5 midfielders and 2 forwards. So you want to pick your 2 forwards. Make sure you've got popular ones that are quite good. So Isak and Chris Wood are the most popular forwards to have. Isak's scoring very well at the moment, so is Chris Wood. Isak's scoring more, but Chris Wood, I'd say, is very consistent. He's a bit like Gordon in that he keeps getting 6, 7, 8, 9 points, something like that. It seems to be week after week. Of course it's not, but more often than not, Chris Wood is getting points, but Isak is getting big points. So if you're playing 5 midfielders, these are the 2 forwards you want to have. And then your third slot could be someone like Raul Jimenez, who when you need him, he can come on. He's only 5.7. Jackson is a good forward, but he's much lower owned than Wood or Isak, and he's lower owned than Raul as well, and he's 8.1 million. So Jackson's got some nice fixtures coming up. He may outscore Wood, but if you're holding on to Jackson rather than Wood, you are taking a bit of a gamble there, because if you get the call wrong, it's going to hurt you. And João Pedro's playing at the moment. I've no idea what the score is at the moment. I've got him, so hopefully he's scored a hat-trick by now. And then Haaland. So Haaland is a good player, undoubtedly a good player, but at 14.8 million, he's really hard to justify to have. But if you've got him, he's away to Ipswich this next coming game week. I think you may as well keep him. You don't have to, but you may as well. And now the once popular forwards that are much lower owned now, we've got Watkins. He's all right, but there are better things to do with the money and better things to do with the forward slot. Solanke, Spurs are coming up to a good run of fixtures. So if you want to do something a little bit different, or rather very different, you could get Solanke as a forward, 7.5 million. He could get some nice points. He did score a goal last game, but it was an own goal, so that wasn't so great. And then Kuna's obviously back from suspension now, but he's got Chelsea, Arsenal, Villa, Liverpool. After that, he may be worth investing in, but if you've not got him, absolutely not worth getting at the moment, I'd say. Havertz is a good player. He's got a chance of getting some points. Obviously, he's got a chance of getting some reasonable points, but he's very lowly owned, so you don't need to worry about him. I think Jamie Vardy's great. He's at home to Fulham. Then he's got Spurs who let in goal. He's got Everton. That won't be so easy. Then Arsenal. So the next 2 games I think for Vardy are okay. And he's only 5.5 million. So a lot of managers are going to have Chris Wood, Isak, and then Vardy or Raul Jimenez or João Pedro. And then Cannon represents any 4.5 million forward who's never going to play. They just sit on your bench and they're in the system. We're now going to look at the benching order, starting with the goalkeepers. Now, this is just my suggestion. You do whatever you like. But my suggestion is the first keeper you see that you've got is the one that goes on your bench, which means you're playing your other keeper. So Ward is any 4 million keeper that doesn't even play. Of course, they're on your bench. Then it's Martinez away to Arsenal, Flecken, Fabianski, Henderson, Pickford, Sanchez, Raya and Sells. And then for the other players, the first player you see you've got, I suggest, is position 3 on your bench, the next one position 2, and the last one position 1. That's Cannon, any 4.5 million forward who doesn't even play. Then Greaves, Faz, Harwood Bellis, Winks, Konza, Dibbling, Mikalenko, Aït-Nouri, Mazraoui, Lewis, Byrne, Semenyo, Enzo, Pedro Porro, Cunha, Gvardiol, Saliba. I've put Saliba here because this is where he belongs if you've got another Arsenal boy at the back like Rayo or Gabriel. If Saliba is your only Arsenal boy at the back, then put him higher up. You're probably going to play him. Then Virgil van Dijk, Robinson, Hall, Aina, João Pedro, Solanke, Raul Jimenez, Vardy, Rogers, Luis Diaz, Mbeumo, Ahmad, Trent, Gabriel, Watkins, Son, Havertz, Jackson, Gordon. And that's all the players in the system apart from 6. And they're your captaincy choices. Sensible captain choices would be Salah, Palmer, Fernandes. They're all reasonable shouts to wear the old Mule hat this coming game week. For the forwards, we've got Isak, Haaland and Chris Wood. So any of these are fine. I think Chris Wood's the least exciting. I suspect Salah's going to be the highest captain, so he's probably going to be the safest choice. But any of these could do well. After Salah, probably Palmer, then Isak is probably the order it's going to be. But any of these for your captain and any of these for your vice-captain, perfectly sensible. If you can't do that or you don't want to, then any of the green midfielders or forwards on the previous pages, they'd also be good calls. As for the background picture, I really struggle sometimes. So today is January the 16th, and it was January the 16th, I think 1919, when the Americans passed the 18th Amendment to the Constitution, which was banning alcohol. So that's when the prohibition started. And personally, I try not to get too political. I think that's a massive overreach by the government. I think government should keep the borders safe and make sure the roads get fixed. And that's about it. But anyway, so a very sad time for a lot of people in America. And of course, when you ban something, it just goes to the black market. So you never stop it anyway. And that's my thoughts for Game Week 22. I hope that was a little bit interesting, a little bit helpful. I know for sure some people are following this series and I do get feedback from them. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.